Have you ever noticed how a single thought can change the feeling of an entire day? You wake up, the room is quiet, nothing has gone wrong, and yet the mind begins speaking. It reminds you of something you regret. It imagines a problem that has not happened. It wonders what someone thinks of you. Before your feet even touch the floor, you may already feel anxious, behind, or disconnected from yourself. Perhaps you have tried to change your circumstances, hoping that peace would arrive when life became more predictable. You may have believed that you would finally relax when a relationship improved, when someone understood you, when the future felt secure, or when the past stopped hurting. Yet even when one problem disappears, the mind often finds another place to rest its fear. This can leave you emotionally exhausted. You may feel as though you are carrying an invisible weight that no one else can see. Outwardly, you continue with your responsibilities. You speak to people, complete your daily tasks, and try to appear calm. Inwardly, however, you may be replaying conversations, questioning your choices, comparing your life with others, or preparing yourself for disappointment. What if the deepest source of this suffering is not always the situation itself, but the thoughts through which you are experiencing it? This does not mean your pain is imaginary. It does not mean difficult circumstances should be denied or covered with pleasant words. Loss is real. Uncertainty can be frightening. Relationships can wound us. Life sometimes brings experiences we would never have chosen. But there may be a quiet freedom in recognizing that pain and the story we continually tell about pain are not always the same thing. A painful moment may happen once, while the mind repeats it 1,000 times. Someone may have rejected you years ago, yet the thought that you are unworthy may still visit you every morning. A mistake may belong to the past, yet the mind may continue using it as evidence against you. Another person may be living a different life, yet comparison may whisper that you are late, forgotten, or somehow less valuable. These thoughts can feel so familiar that they begin to sound like your own identity. You may say, I am anxious, I am not enough, I am unlucky, I am damaged, I am always alone. But perhaps these are not descriptions of who you are. Perhaps they are only thoughts that have been repeated so often that you have forgotten to question them. There is a great difference between saying, I am afraid, and gently noticing, fear is moving through me right now. One statement turns fear into an identity. The other creates a little space around it. And within that space, awareness begins. Awareness is not force. It does not fight the mind. It simply notices. Imagine sitting beside a river and watching leaves float past. Some leaves are light and beautiful. Others are broken, darkened, or tangled with debris. You do not need to jump into the river and follow every leaf. You can remain on the bank and allow each one to pass. Your thoughts are often like those leaves. They appear, move through consciousness, and eventually change. Yet when you believe every thought, you are pulled into the river. You begin traveling wherever fear, blame, resentment, or doubt wants to take you. The beginning of transformation may be much gentler than you imagined. It may not require you to control every thought or maintain a perfect state of mind. It may begin with one honest moment in which you recognize, this thought is creating suffering within me. I do not have to make it my home. You are not being asked to become someone new. Beneath the noise of the mind, there is already something quiet within you. There is a presence that existed before the fear, before the comparison, before the need to prove yourself. It is the part of you that can observe your thoughts without becoming lost in them. It is the part that still longs for love because it remembers love. It seeks peace because peace is closer to your true nature than conflict has ever been. You may have touched this presence in unexpected moments. Perhaps you felt it while watching the sky change at sunset, sitting beside someone you love, hearing the rain, walking beneath trees, or waking in the middle of the night when everything was silent. For a brief moment, the usual story disappeared. You were not trying to fix yourself. You were simply present. In that moment, nothing needed to be added to you. The mind may tell you that peace is somewhere in the future, but your deeper self may be inviting you back to this moment. Not because the present is always comfortable, but because this is the only place where awareness can meet thought and choose again. You may not be able to choose every circumstance, but you can begin noticing the inner voice that interprets those circumstances. You can ask whether that voice is speaking from love or fear. You can become curious about how often you are blaming yourself, resisting life, predicting the worst, or carrying judgments that no longer serve you. And perhaps the most important discovery is this: You do not have to hate your fearful thoughts in order to release them. They may have formed when you were trying to protect yourself. They may be old responses learned during difficult seasons. You can meet them with compassion, the way you would comfort a frightened child. When you stop fighting yourself, something begins to soften. The question is no longer, how do I force my life to change? It becomes, what is happening within me as I experience my life? That question opens a doorway. Beyond it lies a deeper understanding of the ego, the part of the mind that survives through fear, control, comparison, and separation. And when you learn to observe that voice without allowing it to lead you, you may discover that the peace you have been searching for was never truly absent. It was simply hidden beneath thoughts you had mistaken for yourself. The ego is not an enemy you must destroy. It is a pattern of thought that has learned to protect itself by creating separation. It tells you that you are alone, that you must prove your worth, that other people are ahead of you, and that life must follow your plan before you can feel safe. It speaks with urgency because urgency keeps you from becoming still enough to question it. You may recognize this voice in ordinary moments. A friend does not respond to your message, and the mind immediately decides that something is wrong. Someone succeeds in an area where you have struggled, and a quiet heaviness appears in your chest. A loved one disagrees with you, and you feel the need to defend yourself before you have even understood what they are saying. The future remains uncertain, and your mind begins constructing every painful possibility. The ego rarely says, I am creating a story. It says, this is reality. That is why awareness is so important. Awareness allows you to pause before a thought becomes a reaction, before a reaction becomes a habit, and before a habit begins shaping your life. In that pause, you do not need to deny what you feel. You simply give yourself enough space to see more clearly. Imagine that someone you care about becomes distant. The first thought may be, I have done something wrong. Then another thought follows, people always leave me. Soon, the present moment is no longer about one unanswered message. It has become connected to every old wound of rejection, every time you felt unseen, and every fear that you are not lovable. The emotional struggle becomes much larger than the event. A new perspective begins when you gently ask, what do I actually know, and what has fear added? You may realize that you know very little. The other person may be tired, overwhelmed, distracted, or moving through something they have not shared. Even if there is a problem, you can meet it when it becomes clear. You do not have to suffer every imagined version of it in advance. The spiritual insight is not that you should never feel uncertain. It is that uncertainty does not have to become a doorway into self-abandonment. You can remain with yourself. You can breathe. You can let the situation be incomplete without filling the empty space with the most painful explanation. In that moment, you are no longer asking another person's behavior to define your worth. You are remembering that your worth existed before their response and will remain after it. Fear often grows from the belief that you must control life to be at peace. The mind imagines that if it can predict every outcome, manage every relationship, and prevent every disappointment, then it will finally rest. But control rarely brings rest. It creates constant tension because life is always moving beyond the boundaries of our plans. You may make careful choices, speak with sincerity, and act with loving intention, yet you cannot control how others respond. You cannot guarantee that nothing will change. You cannot stop time, prevent every loss, or hold every season in place. A tree does not resist autumn by clinging to its leaves. It releases them because letting go is part of its relationship with life. The empty branches are not a failure. They are preparation for another season. You also move through seasons. There are times of growth and times of waiting. There are relationships that remain and relationships that change. There are dreams that unfold as expected and others that lead you somewhere you never imagined. The ego calls every unwanted change a threat. The deeper self may see change as part of the rhythm of becoming more conscious. This does not mean loss will not hurt. It means you can allow grief without making grief your permanent identity. You can honor what has ended without believing that your capacity for love has ended with it. When control begins to loosen, trust can enter. Trust is not the promise that everything will happen exactly as you desire. It is the willingness to believe that you can meet life without losing the sacred center within you. It is the quiet understanding that even when you do not see the whole path, the next honest step can still reveal itself. Comparison is another way the ego creates suffering. It takes someone else's life and uses it as evidence against your own. It sees another person's relationship, appearance, confidence, home, family, or spiritual understanding and whispers that you should be somewhere else by now. The mind forgets that every person is living through a different season, carrying unseen lessons, fears, losses, and longings. You see a small part of their journey and compare it with the most vulnerable parts of yours. Perhaps you have looked at someone and thought, they have found their purpose and I am still lost. The emotional struggle may feel like shame. You may believe you have wasted time or missed an opportunity that will never return. But a seed beneath the soil does not compare itself with a flower already in bloom. Its apparent stillness is not emptiness. Roots are forming where no one can see them. Your own quiet seasons may also be forming something within you. A period of confusion may be teaching you to stop living according to expectations that were never truly yours. A delay may be asking you to listen more deeply. A disappointment may be clearing space for a more honest direction. Purpose is not always a grand destination waiting to be discovered. Sometimes purpose is expressed in the quality of your presence. It may appear in the way you listen, forgive, create, comfort, or bring peace into a difficult room. It may be present in how sincerely you meet this day. When you release comparison, you begin hearing your own life again. People-pleasing also arises from the ego's fear of separation. You may have learned that love must be earned by being useful, agreeable, quiet, or endlessly available. You may say yes while something within you is asking for rest. You may hide your true feelings because you fear disappointing someone. You may confuse self-abandonment with kindness. The emotional cost is often resentment, exhaustion, and a growing distance from yourself. You give so much energy to managing how others see you that you no longer know what you genuinely feel. A loving boundary is not a rejection of another person. It can be a refusal to continue rejecting yourself. You can care for someone without taking responsibility for every emotion they experience. You can listen without absorbing their pain as your own. You can say no without creating a long argument to prove that you are still a good person. The ego may warn you that setting a boundary will make you unlovable, yet the deeper truth may be that honest love cannot grow where fear requires you to disappear. Awareness helps you notice the moment you are leaving yourself in order to gain approval. You may feel tension in your body. Your words may sound cheerful while your heart feels heavy. Instead of judging this pattern, you can become curious about it. You might ask, what am I afraid will happen if I am honest? Perhaps you fear rejection. Perhaps you fear conflict. Perhaps you learned long ago that keeping everyone comfortable was the safest way to belong. When you understand the fear beneath the pattern, compassion replaces shame. Then you can choose a different thought. Not a harsh thought that says, I should be stronger, but a gentle one that says, my needs are also part of this relationship. I can be loving without abandoning myself. This is how thought begins to transform life. Not through forced positivity, but through a more truthful relationship with your inner world. The ego also holds tightly to blame because blame gives it a clear identity. It says, I am the one who was wronged, and they are the reason I cannot be at peace. Sometimes another person truly has caused pain. Recognizing this is not unspiritual. Harm should not be minimized, and forgiveness should never be used to pressure you into unsafe situations. Yet there may come a moment when blame no longer protects you. It keeps you connected to the injury long after the event has passed. You may replay what happened, imagine different conversations, or wait for an apology that may never come. The person remains present in your mind even when they are absent from your life. You begin to see that holding resentment is like carrying a burning coal and hoping someone else will feel the heat. Awareness does not demand that you drop it immediately. It simply allows you to feel what carrying it has cost you. You might recognize the exhaustion of repeating the story. You may notice how your body tightens when their name appears in your mind. You may begin to understand that releasing resentment is not a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It is a way of returning your energy to yourself. The ego asks, who deserves forgiveness? The soul asks, what would set me free? This freedom does not happen through pretending that nothing mattered. It begins when you stop allowing the past to speak with authority over every present moment. You can learn from what happened. You can keep wise boundaries. You can honor your grief. And still, little by little, you can choose not to make pain the center of your identity. Every time you become aware of a fearful thought, you arrive at a quiet crossroads. One path leads deeper into the old story, the other leads back toward presence. You may not choose presence every time, No one remains perfectly conscious in every moment. There will be days when you become lost in worry, defensiveness, or comparison. The purpose is not perfection. The invitation is remembrance. The moment you notice that you have wandered, you are already returning. Like the sky behind moving clouds, your deeper awareness has not disappeared. Fear may cover it for a while. Anger may darken the view. But the open sky remains untouched behind every passing condition. You are that openness more than you are any temporary thought. As this understanding deepens, you begin to see that awareness is not merely watching the mind, it is the doorway through which love can enter the places fear once controlled. And when love enters, forgiveness, surrender, and trust stop feeling like distant spiritual ideas. They become ways of returning to the true self that has been quietly waiting beneath the ego all along. Returning to your true self does not require escaping your life. It happens in the middle of your relationships, your memories, your uncertainty, and the ordinary moments when you notice that you have a choice. You can continue repeating the thoughts that keep an old wound alive, or you can begin creating space for a different way of seeing. Forgiveness is one of the deepest ways this return begins. Perhaps there is someone whose actions still live within you. You may no longer speak to them. Years may have passed. Yet when you remember what happened, your body responds as though it is happening again. The chest tightens. The mind begins its argument. You imagine what you should have said or what they should finally understand. The emotional struggle is not only the original pain, it is the way the mind carries that pain from one day into the next. Forgiveness does not mean declaring that the wound was acceptable. It does not mean returning to a harmful relationship, ignoring betrayal, or giving someone permission to hurt you again. It may simply mean that you no longer wish to let the event occupy the most sacred rooms of your inner life. Imagine holding a rope tied to the person who hurt you. You may believe you are holding the rope so they cannot escape responsibility, but as long as you hold it, you also remain connected to them. Forgiveness is the moment you begin loosening your grip. You are not saying that nothing happened. You are deciding that what happened will not determine the direction of your soul. You may begin with a very small thought, I am willing to release the need to replay this. That willingness may be enough for today. The mind often wants healing to happen all at once. It wants a clear moment when the past disappears and peace becomes permanent. But forgiveness may arrive like morning light entering a room. At first, only a thin line appears beneath the door. Slowly, the darkness becomes less complete. You may forgive in layers. You may feel peaceful one day and angry the next. This does not mean you have failed. It may mean another layer of grief is ready to be seen. Each time you meet that grief without becoming completely identified with it, you recover another part of yourself. There may also be someone closer who needs your forgiveness, the person you were. Perhaps you regret a decision made from fear. Perhaps you remained too long in a situation that diminished you. Perhaps you hurt someone because you were carrying pain you did not understand. The ego may keep your past mistakes alive by saying, this proves what kind of person you are. But a mistake can become a teacher without becoming an identity. You may look back and realize that you acted from the level of awareness available to you at the time. This does not remove responsibility. It gives responsibility a compassionate purpose. Instead of punishing yourself forever, you can learn, make amends where possible, and choose differently now. A tree does not reject an old branch because it once grew in the wrong direction. It continues reaching toward the light. You can do the same. Self-forgiveness might sound like this. I see what I did. I understand the pain it caused. I am willing to live with greater awareness now. This is not avoidance. It is spiritual maturity. Shame traps you in the past. Compassion allows the past to become wisdom. As forgiveness creates space, surrender becomes possible. Surrender is often misunderstood as giving up, but spiritual surrender is not passivity. It is the release of inner warfare. It is the moment you stop demanding that reality be different before you allow yourself to be present. You may be waiting for an answer about your future. Perhaps a relationship feels uncertain, a door has closed, or your sense of purpose has become unclear. The mind may return to the same questions throughout the day. What will happen? What should I do? What if I choose incorrectly? You may believe that more thinking will create certainty. Yet there are moments when thought has taken you as far as it can. Continuing to circle the question no longer brings clarity. It only creates fatigue. Surrender begins when you recognize this. You might place a hand over your heart and quietly admit, I do not know. There can be surprising peace in those words. The ego is frightened by not knowing because it believes uncertainty means danger. The deeper self may experience not knowing as openness. A river does not need to see the ocean in order to continue flowing toward it. It follows the next curve, moves around the next stone, and trusts its relationship with gravity. Your life may also reveal itself one bend at a time. You do not need the entire path before taking the next honest step. Perhaps the next step is a conversation. Perhaps it is rest. Perhaps it is releasing something you already know has ended. Perhaps it is doing nothing for a while so that your inner voice can be heard beneath the pressure to decide. Intention can guide you when certainty is unavailable. An intention is different from an anxious demand. A demand says, this outcome must happen or I cannot be at peace. An intention says, I choose the quality of energy I bring while remaining open to how life responds. You might enter a difficult conversation with the intention to be truthful and kind. You cannot control whether the other person understands you, but you can remain aligned with honesty rather than allowing fear to speak for you. You might begin a new season with the intention to listen inwardly. You may not know exactly what your purpose looks like, but you can choose to bring patience, love, and presence to what is already before you. When intention arises from the true self, it does not feel like force. It feels like cooperation with life. Consider someone who has spent years trying to become what others expected. They chose work that earned approval, remained agreeable in relationships, and learned how to appear successful while feeling increasingly empty. At first, the struggle may seem like confusion about purpose, but beneath that confusion is a deeper question. Have I ever allowed myself to live from what is true? The new perspective begins when this person stops asking, what will make everyone approve of me? And begins asking, what allows love and aliveness to move through me? The answer may not arrive as a dramatic revelation. It may begin as a gentle attraction towards something meaningful. Teaching, creating, caring for others, spending time in nature, speaking honestly, living more simply. The soul often speaks quietly because it does not compete with the ego's noise. Purpose may be less about finding one perfect role and more about bringing your true presence into every role you inhabit. You can live with purpose while preparing a meal, listening to a friend, caring for an aging parent, or offering patience where you once offered irritation. Purpose is present whenever your life becomes an expression of love rather than fear. This is why changing your thoughts is not a superficial exercise. A thought aligned with love changes the quality of your presence, and your presence touches everything you do. Love is not merely an emotion that appears when circumstances are pleasant. It can be an orientation toward life. It can be the choice to see yourself and others as more than their frightened behavior. Someone may speak harshly to you. The ego may immediately respond with attack or withdrawal. Awareness creates a space in which you can see that their harshness may be the language of their own pain. This understanding does not mean allowing disrespect. It means you can set a boundary without filling your heart with hatred. You can say, I will not accept this treatment, while also recognizing this person is acting from a level of fear. Love allows clarity without cruelty. The same is true in your relationship with yourself. When anxiety appears, you do not need to tell yourself to stop being weak. You can sit beside your fear inwardly and ask what it is trying to protect. Perhaps it fears abandonment. Perhaps it remembers a time when life felt unsafe. Perhaps it believes that constant vigilance is the only way to prevent pain. Instead of fighting the fear, you can reassure it, I am here now. We can meet this moment together. This compassionate thought changes the inner atmosphere. Fear may not vanish immediately, but it no longer stands alone. Trust grows from these small moments of inner companionship. Trusting life does not mean believing that nothing painful will happen. It means believing that your connection with the source is deeper than anything that happens. You may call this source God, divine intelligence, love, spirit, or the quiet life within all things. The name matters less than the experience of remembering that you are not separate from it. There may have been moments when life seemed to guide you without your understanding. A door closed, and later you saw what it protected you from. A difficult ending eventually led to a more honest beginning. A period of loneliness brought you into a deeper relationship with yourself. Not every painful event needs to be given a simple spiritual explanation. Some losses remain mysterious. Some questions are not answered in the way the mind desires. Yet, even within mystery, you may discover that you are being invited into a deeper kind of trust. The ocean does not stop being the ocean when a storm moves across its surface. Beneath the waves, there is depth and stillness. Your inner life may be similar. Thoughts and emotions move across the surface. Some are gentle, others are violent and confusing. But there is a depth within you that is not destroyed by the storm. Returning to your true self means remembering that depth while the waves are still present. You may touch it in silence. For a few moments, you stop trying to solve yourself. You listen to your breath. You allow the sounds around you to come and go. A thought appears, and you let it pass without following it. Another thought arrives, and you do the same. In this stillness, you may sense that awareness itself is peaceful. The mind may be active, but the presence observing the mind is quiet. This presence does not need approval. It does not compare itself. It does not carry a resume of accomplishments or failures. It simply is. Perhaps this is what you have been searching for beneath every desire to improve your life. Not a perfect life, but a return to the place within you that life cannot take away. When you live from this place, gratitude begins to arise naturally. Not because everything is easy, but because you become available to what is already here. The warmth of sunlight, a glass of water, the sound of a familiar voice, the breath moving through your body without being asked. Gratitude shifts attention from what the ego insists is missing toward the quiet abundance of the present. It does not deny longing or grief. It reminds you that even in an incomplete life, there are still moments of grace. The more often you return to awareness, forgiveness, intention, surrender, and love, the less power unconscious thought has over you. You begin responding rather than reacting. You begin releasing rather than clinging. You begin trusting rather than demanding certainty. And slowly, almost without noticing, your inner world changes. The life around you may still contain uncertainty. People may still misunderstand you. Plans may change. Old memories may visit. But you are no longer meeting these experiences from the same place. You are meeting them from a deeper center. This is the return to your true self. It is not an arrival at perfection. It is the repeated remembrance that beneath every fearful thought, there is awareness. Beneath every wound, there is still a capacity to love. Beneath every attempt to control life, there is a quiet invitation to trust. And each time you remember, you come home. Living this truth does not mean that every thought will suddenly become peaceful. The mind will still have old habits. Fear may still appear. Comparison may return. A memory may unexpectedly touch a tender place. But something within you has changed because you now know that a thought can be noticed without becoming your identity. This awareness becomes a quiet practice. You might begin the morning by sitting in stillness for a few moments before reaching for the world. You do not need to force your mind to become silent. Simply notice the breath entering and leaving the body. Let thoughts come and go. Remind yourself that the awareness observing them is deeper than the thoughts themselves. You may gently ask, what kind of inner energy do I wish to bring into this day? Perhaps the answer is patience. Perhaps it is forgiveness, trust, or kindness. You are not trying to control what the day will bring. You are choosing the inner place from which you will meet it. As you move through ordinary moments, you can become aware of the thoughts that disturb your peace. When the mind begins predicting the worst, you might pause and say, this is fear trying to protect me. I can listen without allowing it to lead. When comparison appears, you can remember that another person's path does not diminish your own. When resentment returns, you can ask whether carrying the old story is helping you live with freedom today. These small moments of awareness are not insignificant. They are where transformation becomes real. Gratitude can also become a doorway back to the present. At the end of the day, you may reflect on a few simple things that touched you. A moment of quiet, a kind word, the light through a window. The fact that you made it through a difficult hour without abandoning yourself. Gratitude is not a demand that you ignore what hurts. It is a way of remembering that pain is never the whole story. There may also be something you are ready to forgive. You do not need to force the process. You can begin by holding the intention to be free. You might say inwardly, I release the need for this memory to control my peace. If anger remains, meet it with patience. Healing often moves like a season, slowly changing the landscape from within. Forgiveness may also mean speaking more gently to yourself. Notice how often you use your thoughts as a form of punishment. You may criticize your body, your past, your age, your uncertainty, or the pace of your healing. Ask whether that voice truly represents who you are. You can choose a different voice, one that says, I am learning, I am still worthy of love, I can begin again from this moment. Letting go can become a daily practice as well. You may notice how often the mind tries to control another person, an outcome, or a future that has not arrived. When this tension appears, imagine opening your hands. You can still act wisely. You can still prepare and make decisions, but you do not have to hold life so tightly that there is no room for guidance. A river does not carry the entire journey at once. It moves with the water available in the present moment. You can live this way too. One honest conversation, one conscious breath, one loving boundary, one thought released before it becomes another night of worry. Over time, these choices create a new relationship with yourself. You begin to trust that peace is not something the outside world gives and takes away. It is a place within you that can be remembered again and again. There will be moments when you forget. You may become lost in the noise of the ego. You may react from fear and later wish you had responded differently. When this happens, do not turn awareness into another reason to judge yourself. The moment you notice, you are already returning. Return gently. Return to the breath. Return to the body. Return to the quiet presence beneath the story. Return to the understanding that love is still available, even after a difficult moment. You are not becoming a new person through this process. You are removing what has hidden the person you have always been. Beneath the fear is courage. Beneath the resentment is a heart that still longs to be free. Beneath the need for approval is a self that was never created to live by the opinions of others. Your true self does not need to struggle for worth. It is already connected to the source from which all life comes. Like a wave that has never been separate from the ocean, you may have forgotten your belonging, but you have never lost it. And perhaps that is the deepest transformation of all. Not that the world finally becomes exactly as you want it, but that you no longer require the world to give you permission to be at peace. You begin carrying peace into the world. You bring it into your conversations, your choices, your relationships, and even your uncertainty. Your thoughts become less like walls and more like windows. Through them, you begin to see life with greater compassion. You recognize that everyone is carrying an inner world you cannot fully know. You become slower to judge, quicker to understand, and more willing to choose love without losing yourself. Tonight, or whenever this moment reaches you, allow yourself to become still. Notice what you have been carrying. Notice which thoughts feel heavy and which ones lead you home. You do not have to change everything at once. Choose one thought rooted in fear and hold it in the light of awareness. Ask what love might see differently. Then let the answer arise from the silence within you. The wisdom you need may not be far away. It may already be present beneath the noise, waiting to be remembered. You have always carried a peaceful center within you. You have always been more than your fear, your history, or the thoughts that pass through your mind. And every time you choose awareness over reaction, forgiveness over resentment, love over fear, and trust over control, you return to that center. You return to yourself. Take a moment to share in the comments which thought you feel ready to release and what you are choosing in its place. And subscribe if you would like to continue exploring these quiet spiritual journeys together. May you move gently through your days. May your thoughts become kinder. May your heart feel lighter. And may you remember that the peace you have been searching for has been waiting within you all along.